to have a maid.
Everybody ought to have a working girl. Everybody ought to have a lurking girl to putter around the house. Everybody ought to have a maid.
Everybody ought to have a maid.
Everybody ought to have a menial, consistently congenial, and quieter than a mouse. Oh, oh, wouldn't she be delicious, tidying up the dishes, neat as a pin? Oh, oh, wouldn't she be delightful, sweeping out, sleeping in? Everybody ought to have a maid.
Everybody ought to have a maid.
Someone whom you hire when you're short of help, to offer you the sort of help you never get from a spouse. Fluttering up the stairway, shuttering up the windows, cluttering up the bedroom, buttering up the master, puttering all around the house. Oh, oh, wouldn't she be delicious, tidying up the dishes, neat as a pin? Oh, oh, wouldn't she be delightful, sweeping out, sleeping in? Everybody ought to have a maid.
Everybody ought to have a maid.
Someone who, when fetching you your slipper, will be winsome as a whippoorwill and graceful as a grouse. Skittering through the hallway, glittering through the parlor, tittering in the pantry, littering in the bedroom, puttering all around the house. He's there.
A maid.
A maid.
A maid.
A maid.
Everybody ought to have a maid. Everybody ought to have a serving girl, a loyal and unswerving girl who's quieter than a mouse. Oh, oh,
Think of her at the dustbin, especially when she's just been traipsing about.
oh, oh,
Wouldn't she be delightful?
Living in.
giving out. Everybody ought to have a maid. Tidily collecting bits of paper and strings, appealing in her apron strings, beguiling in her blouse,
Pattering through the attic.
chattering in the cellar,
Clattering in the kitchen.
fluttering in the bedroom, puttering all around the house, the house, the house, the house.
A maid.
A maid.
A maid.
A maid. Everybody ought to have a maid. Someone who's efficient and reliable, obedient and pliable, and quieter than a mouse. Oh, oh, wouldn't she be so nimble, fiddling with her thimble, mending a gown? Oh, oh, wouldn't she be delightful, cleaning up, leaning down? Woo! Everybody ought to have a maid. Someone who'll be busy as a bumblebee, and even if you grumble, be as graceful as a grouse.
Wriggling in the anteroom.
Giggling in the living room.
Giggling in the dining room.
Wiggling in the other rooms, puttering all around the house.